So the magazine ban case of Duncan v. Becerra was heard today at the Ninth Circuit 3-judge panel, and I wanted to talk about what my thoughts were about it. I watched and listened to the entire 1-hour presentation. It is down below. If you would like to listen to the oral arguments yourself, you can watch it. So I'm going to give you just some quick overview of some of the arguments that were made on the state and the plaintiff's side, and then I'm going to kind of give you an insight of what the judges said, some of my thoughts on it, and kind of just give a better idea of kind of what went down. Basically, the state's argument was that we need to ban these magazines because they are a nuisance and because they're a danger to society. People having 17-round mags makes them more effective in mass shooting situations, and limiting individuals to 10-round mags requires them to reload more often, giving you a better opportunity and less likelihood of being killed in a mass murder. That's their general argument. They're also saying that you being forced to give up your 17-round mags or permanently modify them to 10 is not unconstitutional and not seizing of your property illegally because they give you the option of modifying it. They were very strict on the fact that they were saying that you do not have to surrender or destroy these. You have the ability. They brought up the fact that the CRPA said that it's fairly easy and inexpensive to actually modify a 17-round mag or a 30-round mag or whatever round mag to only hold 10. So while the state defendant was speaking, this judges offered a few questions of their own to kind of clarify and to counter those points. They brought up the idea of a slippery slope, saying that, maybe today you can only hold 10. It's a fairly arbitrary number. What if next week it's only 5? Or what if it's only 1? What is the number that theoretically the state would agree that would be unconstitutional? And basically it got to the point where the defendant was unable to concede that anything other than 0-round magazines would be unconstitutional taking away. So he wasn't able to prove that there was any particular reason why 10 rounds was the deciding number that they chose, because we've seen in states like New York, they have 7-round mag capacities as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I'm aware. But he's saying that 10 rounds is legal, and he's saying that 10 rounds are useful in defensive situations. And that's true, because when you do look at the fact that most civilian uses of firearms result in 2.1 rounds or something like that, it is statistically relevant. However, here's the thing. I don't want to play the odds game. If I'm having to shoot at multiple people, what if one of my other hands is holding a phone and I then have to shoot? I don't want to have to reload this multiple times. If I have 17 rounds, that gives me 7 more times to pull that trigger at the face of an enemy when I would have to reload. Now, if I'm on the phone, then do I decide, do I want to drop the phone? Do I want to stay on the line? Do I want to no longer give adequate information to the dispatcher? That's something that's going to get into effect that I wouldn't want to have to make that choice about. One of the big things that I think many people got upset about as far as the plaintiff argument, the judges asked, is there a theoretical upper limit for magazine bans that would be constitutional? People are saying that the plaintiff said yes, straight up, that there is, yes, a number that would be legal. However, that's not really what they're saying. What they are saying is sticking to their main point. If the state were to say 100-round mags, nothing more than that, the plaintiff was saying that you would have to look at the exact number that the state is trying to restrict it to, look at that and say, is that number something that is in common use for lawful purposes among the population? And if you can say that, then the Heller argument of common use is valid, because they used that many times throughout this argument. When they said that millions of magazines are owned, many people go out and buy just the magazines for these guns that are higher capacity. These are in common use, and the Heller argument already shows that that is something that you cannot infringe upon. So they're not saying that, yes, they do want the state to ban a certain number of magazine capacities. What they are saying is that you have to look at what the state is trying to take away from you. You can then use the Heller decision of common use at the time, and does that apply? I think that's a big difference that many people aren't getting and are getting kind of wound up about, and I do agree. I don't personally believe in any upper capacity limit, but if you want to use the Heller argument as your basis for that, you need to look at it for what it was. You need to say, was this something that's in common use for lawful purposes? And if you can say that 60-round drum mags and 100-round drum mags and 1,000-round belts are in common use, which I think you could say they're fairly common in other states, then you would have to say that that cannot be banned because it's common use for lawful purposes. That's the point they're making. I'm fairly confident in this being a potential good decision, and the reason I'm confident is because the two judges on the left and the right, Callahan and Lee, those are primarily more right-leaning judges. The questions they were asking implied that they owned guns and that they are pro-gun as a whole. The questions they asked were very critical of the state. And then when we look at the middle judge, Judge Lynn, she's a Clinton appointee, but she's from Texas. I think her questions were very fair. I believe that she came at it in a way that was very unbiased. She was looking at it the way that you're supposed to be looking at it for the purpose of this. Was there procedural errors with the district court ruling? She was asking critical questions that I think were valid. I don't think she was either pro or anti when it comes to gun ownership. I think the questions were very fair. So I was a lot more impressed than I was expecting. I was kind of fearful. I mean, when you see a Clinton judge, when Clinton was the one that put in the assault weapon ban, you would assume any judge that he puts in during that time might have similar ideas. But it seems like this is going to be a good decision for us, at least in my mind. I'm not a mind reader and I can't tell the future. It's going to be probably months out before we hear anything. I'm excited, but I'm not holding my breath. I'm going to have stuff in some carts at Brownells and PSA, but I'm not going to be waiting with my finger ready on the mouse, ready to click order, because I'm not expecting anything soon. But if anything does happen, I will obviously make a video talking about the discussion of what the decision was actually made and how that worked out. Ultimately, I think the thing that many people need to understand here is that the purpose of this hearing isn't necessarily to remake every single point over again about why magazine bans were wrong. The purpose of this was to look at the decision that the district court made and determine whether or not that was a valid or rightful decision based on the procedural issues or based on the information that was given. They aren't there to restate the entire case argument. So I think that's one thing many people are misunderstanding. I'm seeing a lot of discussion online already of people saying that, oh, why didn't they talk about this reason? Why didn't they talk about people with disabilities not being able to use these mags? Well, that's something that has already been brought up before, and that's something that isn't necessarily what's supposed to be talked about today. And I think that's the biggest thing. So if you have any questions, let's talk about it below. If you have anything that you want to add, any sort of links, references, or whatnot, I'd love to have that conversation. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. This isn't something that I'm an expert at. I just pay attention to a lot of things, and I wanted to give my opinion because people have been asking me since this went live, what's my opinion on it? So I figured while I'm on break real quick on lunch, might as well pump something out real quick and provide it to you guys. As always, have fun, be safe, stay dangerous. Peace.